Hey, Vinny Malkus Outdoors. I'm just kind of sitting here and I was thinking of just the overall fishing tournament industry. What a thought occurred to me that it's probably more advantageous, and this is just by looking at casually looking at numbers, and I'm not including sponsorship dollars or anything. So we're just talking, your entry fee, your travel expenses, maybe some tackle expenses, and the proposed winning purse. I'm not looking at the depth of payouts, but that will obviously be taken into account in what I'm about to say. But it also matters whether you're an angler that likes to swing for the fences or swing for a check. But my contention is, and I think this is supported by the money, X sponsorship dollars, which there's not a whole lot of. There's only a handful of guys out there that are really getting enough sponsorship dollars to make a huge impact on the tournament scene. But my contention, get back to that, is that being a regional hammer, a regional guy, you make dollar for dollar. You have a better chance of making a living in the industry off your tournament winnings than you do fishing a national circuit. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Now, when I'm looking at some of these payout ratios on some of the local regional stuff, like let's take out west, you got one bass for $1,000 entry fee. You're up against maybe a couple hundred guys. Let's just be generous about it, and a $50,000 top prize, and then fairly reasonable payout and good big bass, good big stringer payouts. And if you live out there, it's relatively easy travel. Granted, the West is huge, so if you're coming from like where I was from, that's a huge drive no matter what, and the travel expenses suck. But if you're around that region, Nevada, California, Arizona, even Utah or New Mexico or Colorado for that matter, it's not that bad, and the travel expenses are cut down pretty significantly relative to the amount you would on a national circuit. So I look at those payouts, and dollar for dollar, it's a heck of a lot more than what you're getting in other larger circuits. So for $1,000, or for the U.S. Open, $1,600, and you're able to fish for $150,000, or the lower ones, $1,000 fishing for $50,000. Those look pretty significant. And then you also take in a big bass, and that they usually pay down 3 spots for 3 days, and then big stringer. Looks good. There's some other regional tournaments. Alabama has their own statewide tournament. I know Texas has some regional stuff that pays out pretty good. I'm in the Midwest at the currently, and there's a circuit here that pays out for, if you got 100 boats, it's like 10 grand. And then when they add the 150 to 200 boats, it just pays down significantly, a larger percentage in the middle there. But for 10 grand and the entry fee is like 250, and you're not driving more than maybe an hour, that's pretty good. And your competition, granted, they're locals, but if you're a stick or you have those tools in your chest and to be able to compete, you are a regional hammer. You spend the time and invest the money here, then you're capable of cashing that check or being in contention to win that. As opposed to let's take like a MPFL. That's just because I fished there so last year, and I know the expenses for. So you're fishing for 50 grand, and you're paying 5 grand tournament, plus you're traveling like I was traveling. It's a significant toll. One, you're talking about wear and tear on your vehicle and boat. Like I've had some boat issues from the trailer perspective last year, towing around the country. Your travel expenses. Travel expenses, gas and hotel, and then fishing licenses, and in just the effort you got to put into it. And plus your competition's fairly stiff there. There's some really good fishermen. So your capability of winning that and Xing your dollars and you're getting over break even, or just, to me, it's less. So unless you got sponsorships. Now you take the Elite Series, 5 grand, and you're fishing for 100,000, or Big Five, kind of similar. And then also the Bass Tour, MLF Bass Tour, whatever the heck they're, which I like it, but when you added the entry fees in, then it become a little more untenable without the sponsorship dollars. When they didn't have entry fees, even with the lower payouts, that's kind of nice because then you got to worry about travel experiences. That's all you got to worry about. And these other miscellaneous things. Oh, food costs too. So if you're like, that's the other thing I didn't even think about. But so you go over there fishing the Elite Series and these other ones with axe the sponsorship stuff out. Which hopefully if you are on there, but there are guys on there that don't have the sponsorship dollars. I mean, that's a cold hard reality. There's guys that are fishing these national circuits that don't have that backing, or they barely have anything that's worth even note. But you're fishing for this, $5,000 plus travel expenses and hoping that you get your name out there and you can attract that sponsorship dollars. But in general, it just doesn't work out to me. You're away from your family, all these other X factors. But if you take the regional aspect, we're just talking about food too, and you can sleep in your own bed a lot of times. And you're fishing for, 20, 30 times your dollar that you're paying in. And you don't have to pay, you don't travel as far, you don't have to pay the gas, you don't have to pay the housing, you don't have to pay the food expenses too, are significantly less. It just makes a lot more sense. So I mean, I want to try it out this year a little bit, fishing more regional stuff here. And then also I'll probably do the US Open. We're going to try to do that, see how things shake out, because that's an awesome tournament. But I want to try this regional thing, because if you can dedicate a lot of your time to a few bodies of water around that have good tournaments, that have payouts, I think you can actually make a living doing this, as opposed to these bigger national circuits. Now, once you gather sponsors, it makes a lot more sense to go up there, especially it's more advantageous for both of you in those relationships. But let's face it, like I just said, there's a lot of guys that are up there and they don't have the sponsors dollars, and they're trying to get the sponsor dollars, and they're, living on a wing and a prayer a lot of times. So I'm just saying, for the average guy, it's better for you to be a regional hammer and really know 3 to 4 bodies of water and put the time and effort into those. And when the tournament season comes around, you just knock it out of the park, as opposed to being on the national tour. And that's just my 2 cents. So you could disagree with me. I mean, there's something to be said to be on like a Elite Series. It is the cream of the crop to be on like a Bass Pro Tour, to be in the Big Five, to be in the NPFL. There's a certain prestige about the circuits, and to be on the Apex Tour, to me that's would be a goal of mine at this point, because I've been looking at that. I'm like, wow, that's an awesome platform, and I love the way they're running that thing. And there's hammers there. To me, I'd put those anglers up against anybody. But so anyway, the overall thought, and if you got anything, please comment. It's like, hey, being a regional hammer, knowing 3 or 4 bodies of water, with good tournaments around, you can make a living doing that, as opposed to being on the national tours and still carry another job and still be around for the family and still be able to sleep in your own bed for the majority of the year. So it's more beneficial, in my opinion, at this point in the way the industry is structured. Anyway, like, subscribe, peace.